It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution is impactful.
The food revolution is transformative.
Compassion.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution is life.
The future of medicine.
Long overdue.
It's time.
It's time.
It is time for a food revolution.
The food revolution is our future.
It's power to change the world.
And it's available for everyone.
It's time for a food revolution.
It's time for a food revolution.
Join the food revolution.
Join the food revolution.
Now is the time.
We hear a lot about superfoods, amazing exotic berries harvested from high up in the Himalayas, or rare roots from deep in the tropical rainforest. Unfortunately, a lot of these superfoods are super expensive. How super really is a food that only the wealthy can afford?
Perhaps the real superfoods are the ones that can do the most good for the most people. They're super accessible, super affordable, super nutritious, and also super delicious when you know what to do with them.
Ocean actually co-wrote a fabulous cookbook called The Real Superfoods, so he knows a little bit about this topic. And now in this episode, we're going to look at some of the truly superfoods, why they're so good for you, and how you can enjoy them and reap the benefits. I'm John Robbins.
And I'm Ocean Robbins, and you're watching the 2024 Food Revolution Summit.
Food is kind of a zero-sum game. Every time we put the food in our mouth, it's a lost opportunity to put something even healthier in our mouth, right? And since it's the number one cause of death and disability, one cannot emphasize that enough. Since it is the most important decision we make every single day in terms of how long we live, well then maybe we should put some thinking into it and just try to, in general, on a day-to-day basis, try to center our diets as much as possible around these healthiest of healthy foods, the whole plant foods, like the fruits and the vegetables and the legumes and the whole grains and the nuts and seeds and the herbs and spices and the mushrooms, real food that grows out of the ground. These are our healthiest choices.
The way I see it, superfoods are foods that have extensive health benefits beyond just providing basic nutrition. They're exceptionally nutrient dense, meaning you get a lot of nutrients per calorie. And because they deliver high concentrations of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, they also have major disease-fighting power.
And this means that they're not only super healthy, but also affordable, easy to use, and widely accessible. Real superfoods provide phytochemicals and micronutrients that are stunningly powerful in fighting chronic diseases, like cancer and dementia and heart disease, and even wrinkles.
These nutritional powerhouses can boost your immune system, improve your digestion, give you more energy, and even contribute to a more satisfying sex life. They can be grown and harvested in ways that benefit the people who share their ecosystem, and you likely already have some of them sitting in your pantry or refrigerator right now, just waiting to be used and appreciated.
So let's start with one of the most powerful single superfood groups of all, leafy greens. Adding more leafy greens to your diet will boost brain health and lower your risk of heart disease, cancer, and high blood pressure.
Dina and I are very cautious with words and using concepts because, when you are given that opportunity to be a voice for evidence-based medicine, you have to kind of be very careful about using the concept of superfood. So we say, no, dietary patterns are important. You can't just eat blueberries and call it a day and then you can eat whatever you want. So there's no such thing as superfood, but I have to retract sometimes that statement and say, if there's any superfood, it might have to be leafy green vegetables because they are so incredible. And whenever you look at dietary patterns, at the core, the foods that have the highest anti-inflammatory indices are leafy green vegetables. And that's because of their phenomenal array of polyphenols and antioxidants and other anti-inflammatory products like camphorol. And I mean, I could go on and describe all the different names, but they're just so potent, and they're low in calorie, and they're high in fiber, and they have potassium, and they have selenium, and they have zinc and different vitamins. And they're just beautiful iron, and they're beautiful concoction of necessary minerals and vitamins and fiber and anti-inflammatory products that essentially fight against inflammation. And we know that one of the pathways to, neurodegenerative diseases is inflammation. And inflammation is fought by leafy green vegetables. And we've seen in long-term, great prospective studies, ones that have been done long time ago and the ones that were conducted recently, that people who consume even one serving of green leafy vegetables per day, which is about a cup and a half of raw and maybe half a cup of cooked green leafy vegetables, that's nothing. That's just fits in the palm of your hand. If people consume that much, their brains are 11 years younger compared to those who don't consume leafy green vegetables. And this is both by neuroimaging terms, so visually, and by neuropathological terms when they look at cellular function. That's amazing. There's no medicine out there that actually does that. And so, yes, if people can consume green leafy vegetables, they are well off and they can stay protected and their brain's going to function so well.
In fact, when we work in populations, one of the first things we actually add, and we do it very systematically to make sure that behavior change is sticky and it becomes permanent, is leafy green vegetables. And it's because it's the most powerful by far.
We're trying to eat raw green vegetables and cooked green vegetables. And these longevity studies on hundreds of thousands of people documenting what food has the largest effect on extending human lifespan. The answer is green vegetables with no threshold effect, which means that mushrooms have a threshold, because once you're eating a half a cup of mushroom, probably eating a whole cup's not going to give you more benefit. But that's not the same thing with green vegetables. With green vegetables, you go from 1 cup to 2 cups to 3 cups to 4 cups a day. You still get, in studies, enhancement in lifespan and more centenarians in those studies. And so we're saying a mix of different type of green vegetables, different ways of inputting green vegetables, both raw and cooked and partially cooked, different type, both cruciferous and non-cruciferous green vegetables. So we're going after a variety of green vegetables, different types, both cooked and uncooked.
The way you learn to love anything is by doing it. They say that it takes about 15 times to try a new food for it to become a preferred food. And I think the reason people don't like greens, many of them are bitter, especially things like mustard greens and arugula. And also at least in America, the culture, we never got really used to that bitter green taste. Some of the cultures, like Italy, for example, they actually have things like a pre-course or actually they serve bitters. Mm-hmm. So their kids might actually enjoy them, because we develop taste preferences for what we habitually eat. And if you're giving your kids, Costco soda and hot dogs and goldfish crackers, they're never going to learn to love kale and arugula. But the thing is if people, especially people that want to lose weight, knew that there was this magical compound in greens called thylakoids that actually block the hunger drive, turn off the fat switch, and just help decrease your cravings for sweets. But here's the thing. You don't have to eat steamed kale. I mean, you can if you want. There are ways to make vegetables absolutely delicious that you can trick yourself into eating them. So for example, there's another machine called an air fryer. And again, you don't have to get the top of the line that's several $100s. I've seen them at some of the big box stores for pretty reasonable prices. And I don't know what they do, but they magically transform vegetables into delicacies. So something like a Brussels sprout, when you put it in an air fryer, it just becomes creamy on the inside, crunchy on the outside, and even without any kind of seasonings on it.
Pick whatever one we want, right? So kale is a cruciferous vegetable. It has its own set of kind of anti-cancer properties. Mm-hmm. Spinach, Swiss chard, collard. People don't like collard greens. A cup of collard greens has more calcium than a cup of milk, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to build strong bones. So green leafy vegetables are amazing.
Leafy green veggies are packed with carotenoids and antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. They also deliver high concentrations of dietary nitrates, which are natural vasodilators, and that are good for your arteries and protect your heart. And in addition to promoting cardiovascular health, leafy greens also fight cancer, protect your brain from dementia, and help prevent or even reverse type 2 diabetes.
You can add leafy greens to your diet in many wonderful ways. You can try them in salads, stir fries, steamed side dishes, or in soups and stews and casseroles. And for picky eaters, you can even hide them in smoothies and dips.
Now let's talk about legumes. The legume family includes beans and lentils, peas, and even peanuts. They are highly valued for their nutritional benefits all over the world, and in fact, the Blue Zone research has identified them as the food group most highly correlated with human longevity.
Anyone who doesn't know how to get enough protein in a plant-based diet doesn't know beans. Literally, legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils. These are the plant protein superstars. I encourage people to eat 3 servings of legumes every day. And legumes play a starring role for a number of reasons, one of which is the healthiest source of protein.
Legumes are probably the biggest. Beans and lentils. That's probably the greatest superfood out there. For a lot of reasons, right? So super nutritious. People don't realize. If I ask you, like, what's most people? I'd say, what foods do you think have the most antioxidant capacity? Those typically say blueberries, raspberries, blueberries. That's not true. It's actually dark beans. It's the pigments in the skin of the bean. You take a black bean, you cook and you cut it in half. Right? It's creamy white inside. It's the antioxidants in the skin of the beans, right? Powerful antioxidants. They're loaded with fiber. They serve as a prebiotic for healthy gut bacteria downstream. They got lots of vitamins and minerals. Beans and lentils as a protein source. I would say that's probably the number one, right? And I have beans 2 or 3. I eat beans a lot. Let's just say
legumes. They are so important to the diet. I recommend someone eat legumes every day. They are full of fiber. They help increase satiety on a plant-based diet. And similar to greens, right, you can put beans in anything, right? And the other thing I like about beans is that it's a good replacement for meat, right? So if you're doing like a pasta, right, instead of a meat sauce, you could do a brown lentil sauce. If you were doing a taco, instead of ground beef, you can use beans, right? There's so many good options there in terms of replacing meat. And so then you get that double benefit of now you're removing that animal product from your diet and then also adding in something very beneficial.
Whether it's Mediterranean diet or DASH diet or Prudent diet or the Mind diet, people who consume beans and legumes in general have better brain health and, of course, better vascular risk factor markers. We know from different studies that when people consume beans, they have better cholesterol profile. And we know that people who have high LDL cholesterol that are at higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. So if something improves your LDL, go for it. And beans definitely do that. They do that short term and long term. So even after eating one meal that has beans in it, we see better cholesterol and glucose markers. And long term, of course, people have better cholesterol profile and better vascular risk factor profile with it too. And, there's this notion that beans, because they're cheap and they're widely available, nobody really gives them a lot of credit. I think the most humble of superfoods are beans and lentils. They're available. They have, all of the amino acids that essentially make a perfect protein. The quality of protein really is not an issue at all. Some people think that meat are better quality than beans. They're not. They're absolutely not. You can actually consume lentils and meet all of your needs and all of your requirements and live a very healthy life.
Beans and lentils in particular, including soybeans, have so much lifespan enhancing and anti-cancer benefits and make you feel satisfied with less calories because they take so long to digest and are rich in protein and all the carbohydrates aren't all absorbable. They pass through into the toilet bowl. And if all the carbohydrates aren't absorbable in a high protein bean, that means the protein of the bean is even higher than you would think, because all the carbohydrates are not fully absorbed. So the amount of calories that really are absorbed means the beans are even higher in protein than you would have thought. So yes, beans have been shown to extend lifespan in a radical fashion and to prevent cancer.
Legumes are strong sources of protein, and they're high in fiber and resistant starch, which makes them great for your microbiome. Studies have shown that legumes are protective against cancer, against cognitive decline, against type 2 diabetes, and against heart disease.
The best way to prepare beans is to soak them for a day or two before you cook them, changing the water and rinsing them twice per day. And then you want to cook them well, ideally in a pressure cooker or an Instapot. This way you can remove some of the oligosaccharides that induce gas. Cooking them with a 1-inch piece of kombu seaweed has also been found to make beans less likely to cause flatulence.
So, what are some good ways to incorporate beans and other legumes into your diet?
For people that don't like beans, you can also hide them in things. So for example, one of my first recipes I created was called Outrageous Brownies, which is made from a can of black beans. Nobody knows there's beans in there. Nobody. And hummus. Everyone loves hummus. I don't say everybody, but I think most people, when you blend it up and things like that, or gosh, again, air fryer to the rescue, chickpeas, which are great on a salad. Air fried chickpeas are one of the most wonderful snacks in the world, even when they're unseasoned. So for people that like that idea of like a crunchy snack like popcorn, so much healthier for you.
There's so many amazing ways of incorporating beans. For people who may not be used to, eating a lot of legumes, we always suggest starting with the smallest size of beans. So starting with, say, for example, red lentils, starting with, the French puy beans or lentils, starting with maybe some chickpeas that may be easier on their gut microbiome compared to broad beans or bigger beans that may potentially cause more indigestions because of gas. Initially, because people need to build their gut to be able to break down all that fiber. Just to give you some examples, we make a really nice soup out of lentils. You can make soups, you can make curries, you can make sauces, you can blend beans and make an amazing pasta sauce. We actually make, pasta sauces from cannellini beans. You can make incredible burgers. You can add beans to your dessert. We've actually made black bean brownies with dates and cocoa powder and hemp seeds. They're high in protein, high in fiber, and nobody ever finds out that they're black beans in a dessert. And so there are multiple ways to use beans. And I think people will find out that there's so many ways that you can incorporate these exceptionally amazing foods.
We had a Halloween party for our kids, Sophie's classmates. She's the president of her group. And so 40 students came and
yes.
mac and cheese. And the cheese was the white sauce.
Yeah, we made mac and cheese.
And nobody knew that this was a healthy mac and cheese. Nobody knew. And they were imagine kids taking food home. That's how good it was. So I know she's my wife, but it was just absolutely remarkable.
Now let's talk about alliums, which are better known as the onion and garlic family. They include onions and garlic, and also leeks and scallions and shallots and chives.
All allium vegetables are a treasure trove of health benefits. They're rich in essential vitamins and minerals, and they're high in particular soluble fibers called fructans and inulin, which are renowned for their ability to promote the health of good and diverse gut bacteria.
Alliums are also loaded with antioxidants like quercetin. Quercetin can slow tumor growth, and it's been shown to be effective in colon cancer treatment. It might also reduce the symptoms of bladder infections and help reduce blood pressure and promote prostate health. And it's also a natural antihistamine.
Garlic, onions, leeks, and chives contain specific flavonoids that promote the production of glutathione, which is known as the mother of all antioxidants. Glutathione is essential for every cell in your body. It boosts your immune system, it protects your heart, and it helps remove toxins from your body.
Alliums can also be great for your cardiovascular health. Studies have shown that consuming garlic and onions can lower blood pressure, reduce triglycerides, and prevent the buildup of arterial plaque.
And cancer prevention is another area where alliums shine, with numerous studies now linking their consumption to a lowered risk of various cancers, including gastric, intestinal, prostate, and breast cancer.
So what are some good ways to use alliums in cooking?
I'll make a cooked vegetable dish like California cream kale with a thickened garlicky tomato sauce on top. And then I'll splash on the top some either chopped red onion or chopped scallion raw to mix in with the cooked kale and the cooked tomato sauce and stuff, which has dramatic beneficial effects on longevity and lifespan.
There is no dish that can't be improved by sprinkling some green onions on it. I love them so much. I know there's people sometimes that say, oh, onions and garlic bother me, but I believe, and I was told this by a French chef, that onion is the foundation of French cooking. Well, I think onion is the foundation of all cooking, and how people can cook without onions, I really don't know. And of course, they're part of Dr. Furman's G-bombs, the onions, part of Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, but they're especially, some people can't tolerate them raw, and that's perfectly okay. And because when you cook anything, onion and garlic especially, it completely mellows it out. I don't know. I can't make food. I personally can't make food delicious without it. I know there's some people that probably can. But again, I would really encourage people, like a lot of people say, well, I have trouble with garlic. Roast it. And it's really easy to roast for 10 minutes in the air fryer. It mellows it out. It becomes creamy and delicious. So I would encourage people that if they have a food, not an allergy, of course, but if they have some kind of intolerance, to find other cooking methods, or maybe heal whatever is going on in their gut so that they can eat these foods, because they're not only so nutritious, but they add so much variety and deliciousness to your food. I mean, there's so many different kinds of onions, from Maui onions to sweet onions to white onions to yellow onions to red onions, and they're all delicious. They're all slightly different. I mean, there's black garlic, there's white garlic. So I love onion and garlic. What can I tell you? Onion, garlic, berries, don't take those away from me. Greens, I'm a happy camper.
Now, one word of caution, alliums don't work for everyone. Some of the most popular alliums, like garlic and leeks and shallots and onions, can in some cases worsen irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. So if you're dealing with IBS, you may want to try steering clear of alliums for a time to see if that helps. But if they don't cause irritation in your colon, then alliums can actually be very good for your microbiome overall, because they feed the good bacteria in your gut.
Next, let's talk about mushrooms. I think they are remarkable superfoods.
Yes, they really are. Mushrooms deliver a healthy dose of protein, and they're also incredibly high in antioxidants. They're packed with B vitamins and even vitamin D when they're exposed to the sun while they're growing. And they're also high in minerals like selenium and potassium and copper. And they contain two types of important dietary fibers, beta-glucans and also chitin, which promotes good gut health.
And mushrooms have some tremendous anti-cancer properties. Researchers from the University of Western Australia in Perth conducted a study of 2,000 Chinese women, roughly half of whom had breast cancer. The scientists reviewed the women's eating habits and factored out other variables that are known to contribute to cancer, like being overweight or lack of exercise or smoking. After eliminating those confounding factors, they found that those women who consumed at least 1/3 of an ounce of fresh mushrooms every day, which is equivalent to about 1 mushroom per day, were 64% less likely to develop breast cancer. In the study, dried mushrooms had a slightly less protective effect, reducing the risk by about half.
Other researchers found that white button mushroom powder was able to significantly lower prostate-specific antigen, or PSA, levels in men previously treated for prostate cancer. This implies that they could be helpful for preventing the recurrence of prostate cancer in men.
Mushrooms also protect your brain and your heart, support your immune system, and reduce your risk of developing type 2 diabetes.
Mushrooms have anti-fat storage effects and anti-estrogenic effects and anti-cancer growth effects. They don't let abnormal cells proliferate, and they supply substances that increase the immune system's recognition of abnormal cells. They allow the immune system to identify cell surfaces that have become sickly so the cell can be removed and destroyed before it can turn into a cancer cell. So mushrooms are magical. They're a magical food, and they should be a regular food. And it's not just one mushroom. We're trying to increase the variety of different types of mushrooms we eat. So like black forest mushrooms. And so I'm encouraging people, spend the extra money on getting a wide variety of organic mushrooms because they don't weigh very much. And you can even just a little bit, inclusion of that little bit has tremendous beneficial lifespan promoting effects.
Mushrooms are, well, they have to be one of my favorite foods, and they are delicious. And with that deliciousness comes so many health benefits. They are phenomenal sources of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds. They're also great sources of vitamin D, especially if some mushrooms are exposed to sunlight. They have more vitamin D in them. They are phenomenal sources of fiber and so many minerals and micronutrients that help keep us healthy. And people who eat mushrooms on a regular basis have lower risk of infections and inflammatory conditions. And also, they serve as a great food for keeping us healthy. Specifically for brain health, there were a couple of studies that were done that showed that people who consume mushrooms on a regular basis have lower risk of developing neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease. And it makes sense because sometimes, when you replace certain unhealthy foods, like for example, when people are used to the texture of meat and they replace that with mushrooms, not only does it taste good, but you're actually consuming all of these healthy elements that are found in mushrooms. And so people live longer, they live healthier, and they have healthy brains.
So mushrooms are great because they come in many varieties. They have a very hearty texture, which for people who are looking for that sort of hardiness to their food, it's very filling. They work well. Mushrooms are a great meat substitute because they're loaded with fiber. They're naturally cholesterol-free. They're naturally low in fat. So their nutritional density is high, but their caloric density is very low. So I would recommend people experiment with them and try them in different recipes.
Some medicinal mushrooms cost a lot more than others. If you want to get the health benefits from mushrooms, do you need to opt for the $40 a pound varieties?
Well, the good news is that as far as its nutritional profile is concerned, most mushrooms essentially fall in the same spectrum. I think the different kinds of mushrooms that are found in the market they vary based on, of course, their availability, their growth, and their texture as well. Specific mushrooms like lion's mane mushroom and shiitake mushroom, there were a couple of studies that have looked at their benefits for brain health. And I have to be honest, the results were not earth-shatteringly different, even though there's this notion that, mushrooms reduce the risk of cognitive impairment. The studies were very small. So for example, the lion's mane mushroom was studied in a group of 30 individuals. It was only studied in Japan. And when people consumed a whole lot of lion's mane mushroom, it showed that it made a difference in their cognitive scoring system. But I wouldn't really bank on that. I wouldn't use that study to say mushrooms are good for you. We have plenty of other studies that show that mushrooms have been associated with better vascular risk markers, so better cholesterol, better blood pressure, and things of that nature. So I would eat it because of that, because we know that blood pressure, cholesterol, and glucose abnormalities or glucose metabolism abnormalities like prediabetes and diabetes have been associated with Alzheimer's disease. So to improve those vascular markers, we should be consuming mushrooms. But anything that people can have access to, whether it's canned button mushrooms or the regular white mushrooms that are found in the stores, baby bella mushrooms, those are great. Of course, shiitake mushrooms are my favorite. They have such an amazing texture, and they don't disappear. They kind of give this meaty texture in soups and stews and in burgers. We make a really nice mushroom shawarma from portobello mushrooms and shiitake. So those are really delicious, but any type of mushroom is great. And if people can have access to it, they should go for it.
What are the best ways to use mushrooms in cooking?
full confession, I'm not a mushroom lover, but just because I'm not a mushroom lover doesn't mean I'm not a mushroom eater. And this is where you trick yourself to find ways that you can make something that's not your favorite delicious. So one of the things, again, getting back to the air fryer, I don't love mushrooms, but if I take them with a little bit of a good quality seasoning, like I love this pepperoni spice I have, it's salt-free, it's just delicious, and I put the mushrooms on my air fry them, I can't stop eating them. I can eat them plain or as a pizza topping. So that's one example. Another way I enjoy mushrooms, and again, not a mushroom lover here, is to stuff them. And I stuff them with a delicious oil-free pesto made of pine nuts and basil and garlic and a little bit of miso. It's a delicious recipe and I can enjoy them that way. Also, sauteing helps, at least for me. So cutting them small also helps. I don't know, there's something just a little creepy about them for me, but they're so great because they can be a meat substitute and they have that hearty, like you say, umami texture. But if I saute an onion, which is very easy to do without any oil, and caramelize it, and then cut up garlic and mushrooms, it's very palatable to me that way. So like I would say, if you don't like them, find a way maybe you could like them. Another trick is, mushroom powder. You can just put a little bit in your soup and then you'll get that umami flavor without the actual mushroom.
Berries are some of the healthiest and the most delicious foods you can find. They have huge antioxidant capacity. Their dark blue or red hues signal the presence of anthocyanins and polyphenols and antioxidants like resveratrol.
Studies show that berries can lift mood and help prevent depression. They can preserve cognitive function as you age and help prevent several neurodegenerative diseases, including Parkinson's. They also combat cardiovascular disease and cancer and even acne.
Red berries, raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. So think of all these colors that we see in these berries as these shields of antioxidants. So antioxidants are substances in our food or body that neutralize free radicals. Free radicals are things that just cause mischief and damage to our body. And berries like blueberries are loaded with antioxidants, so they help fight inflammation, infection, disease. So they're wonderful. And what's great about them is they have a really low caloric density, loaded with fiber, naturally sweet, virtually fat-free, and just a terrific source of nutrients.
The ones that are my favorite that I know research has been done on to show their human benefits that I think are really powerful are strawberries and blueberries and cranberries. Those are three common ones. You can find them in the grocery store anywhere. And strawberries contain ellagic acid, among many other bioactives, polyphenols. Blueberries contain proanthocyanidins and anthocyanins, which actually give them the blue dye color. Eggplant skins also have that. And then cranberries also have a number of polyphenols that are cranberry-based and that can contribute to the tartness of the cranberry as well. So what do these bioactives do? They activate our health defense systems. They help our blood vessels become healthier. Angiogenesis health defense. They can even protect our stem cells and help us regenerate and repair ourselves more easily from the inside out. These berries contain some amount of dietary fiber, but the polyphenols are prebiotics that help our gut health improve as well. They are antioxidant in activity, so they protect our DNA, and they're anti-inflammatory. Now, how do we know this? Because strawberries and blueberries have been actually studied in human research to look at their anti-inflammatory effect. A great study with blueberries was done in athletes where they, most people don't know this, but when you work out, you're actually inducing a lot of inflammation, and your body has to trigger anti-inflammatory responses after you exercise to recover. Professional athletes will tell you that, they have to work out and train for the game, but very importantly, after the game, there's a huge amount of preparation that they have to do in order to get back into shape. And a lot of that's controlling inflammation for recovery. Berries are a secret weapon for that. Blueberries are one of them. And you don't have to have a lot. Just a cup of blueberries a day can actually help to lower inflammation.
Berries actually make it into my anti-aging aid. So they are the fruit most associated with longevity. Because we think that it's primarily due to these anthocyanin plant pigments, those the actual coloring chemicals themselves that make berries such kind of bright colors, the purples and the blue and the bright red. And there are some non-berry foods, like purple cabbage actually has anthocyanins, those same wonderful things in berries, and often a lot cheaper than berries. So you can find some anthocyanins elsewhere, like purple carrots and things like that. But most of our intake really does come from berries, particularly blueberries and strawberries in the United States. Those are not the most concentrated sources. Blackberries would even be better if you have access. And so, look, any berry, whichever berry you have access to that you like the most, that's the berry you should eat. So there is certainly a hierarchy that some are a little better. So wild blueberries are better than kind of regular conventional blueberries, but they're all good, whatever you have access to.
Unless you pick them yourself, fresh berries can be expensive. And they also have a high ecological footprint if they're flown around the world. Frozen berries can cost a lot less. But is frozen as good nutritionally? And are there any other tips for enjoying berries and getting the most value from them?
I encourage people to get frozen fruits and vegetables. What a convenient way to get nutrition, sometimes even healthier than so-called fresh, because it was actually frozen on the day of picking and retains more nutrition than some of the fresh produce that may have been sitting on a ship for a week coming from New Zealand or something, losing nutrition every day.
Berries are just wonderful. Even if you're a sugar addict, you gotta love berries. I mean, how could you not love strawberries and blueberries and raspberries and blackberries? And like I said, you can get them in box stores now very, very affordably. And people worry like frozen vegetables or frozen fruits. They can be every bit as nutritious as fresh, maybe even more so. And I can't say enough good things about berries because I love them. They're beautiful. And when I think about when I used to eat nothing but sugar, one of my favorite candies was called Swedish berries, which looked exactly like like the fruit, but it was like about 1 million times sweeter and obviously not healthy. But berries are great because you can put them in. First of all, they're just great by themselves as desserts. I like to macerate them. And what that means, it doesn't mean you add sugar. It just means you add a little bit of liquid, like a tablespoon or so, which kind of softens it and makes them seep. And that liquid can be water. It can be orange or pineapple juice. It could be a good quality balsamic vinegar. I'm in heaven when I do that. But throw a few in your salad. Throw a few in your oatmeal. Throw a few in, even in savory recipes, blueberries example. But I know very few people who dislike berries.
The anthocyanins and the proanthocyanins, bioflavonoids in berries, their absorption is inhibited if you have banana at the same meal. So berries are important, and we shouldn't put berries in a banana-based smoothie because of the compound in bananas that could slow and compete with the absorption of those anti-cancer substances in berries. So that's why we tell people in the morning, have a little intact whole grain like amaranth or teft or steel-cut oats or something with a cup of berries. And you can put a little other fruit like citrus fruit or something, but with a heaping teaspoon of flax seeds and chia seeds and hemp seeds with a plant milk on it, with an unsweetened plant milk. That's a typical breakfast, right? Because you got your seeds in and you got your berries in, and you didn't mix it with banana or date, which could interfere with the absorption of these beneficial compounds from the berries.
Next, let's talk about herbs and spices. Every culture is defined in part by the spices used in its cuisine. In India, there's cardamom and cumin. In Italy, there's basil and oregano. In Mexico, there's chili and garlic and cilantro. In Thailand, there's lemongrass and sweet basil. And in North America, there's a bit of everything in the culinary melting pot. Fortunately, herbs and spices don't just bring wonderful bursts of flavor, though they certainly do that, but they also bring huge levels of nutrition.
First, I think all herbs and spices are great because if you think about it, they are basically low in calories. They have virtually no calories. They are seasoning our food. So again, instead of using added fats and sugar, we're using spices to bring out the flavor in food.
Pound for pound, spices have so many anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compounds. And when people consume them on a regular basis, not only does it improve their health, but it also improves the taste and the flavors in their diet, and they're actually more likely to eat flavorful foods. All spices are incredible. Things like for example, cumin and paprika and different types of herbs. All of them are incredible. The one spice that has been studied, and Dean and I were fortunate to have the opportunity to study it when we were the directors of Brain Health at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles, was turmeric. So turmeric has a compound called curcumin, which is the active part, one of the active parts of turmeric. There's so many other ones that haven't really been studied as of yet, 4,000 compounds in turmeric. But curcumin seems to be a very potent antioxidant compound that passes through the blood-brain barrier. And it essentially has a proclivity for binding with amyloid beta protein, which is the bad protein that has been associated with Alzheimer's disease. And now subsequent studies are showing that it may potentially take off some of that amyloid beta protein from around the neurons. So it actually decreases the amyloid load in the brain. And we studied it by giving patients large doses of curcumin and studying the passing of curcumin through the blood-brain barrier in the retina. So retina, or the back of the eye, is an extension of the brain. And we saw curcumin depositing in the retina. And so from those studies and subsequent studies, we know that consumption of turmeric is associated with improved vascular markers, lower inflammation, and potentially lowering the load of amyloid beta protein in the brain. And amyloid beta protein continues to be formed in our brain. It's the reduction or getting rid of it that is the major problem as we age, and that has been associated with Alzheimer's disease. So, we propose adding turmeric to beverages. Like we love having some golden milk. We add, a little bit of turmeric with soy milk or almond milk, and maybe some cinnamon, some black pepper that increases its bioavailability by 2,000%. Adding it into curries, into sauces, into stews. Those are wonderful ways of adding them to our foods.
And it's interesting to me that, so you look at traditional healing diets. You look at Ayurvedic medicine, for example. Turmeric is huge in Indian, in South Asian cuisine, and there's a reason for that. It's been around for people have known that for thousands and thousands without a double-blind controlled study, right? So we need to learn from our, I don't want to say our elders, but we need to learn from these healing traditions about the power of food. And I use turmeric every day. I actually take a turmeric supplement. I took that pretty regularly during my training just to help recover, and I've stayed on that. The other interesting fact about turmeric, some people might not know, is that black pepper helps increase the absorption of curcumin about 2,000%.
Turmeric is like everybody's spice now. Everybody, since we learned about all the health benefits of those, but all spices have some benefit. I mean, there's actually books written by Indian doctors that explain the spice, the benefit of each spice. But most people like cinnamon. There's benefits to cinnamon. There's benefits to vanilla. Pretty much every spice has its own host of benefits. And so, use condiments. And people think like that. I don't know what people think, that we eat just like this boring, just bowl of gruel. I use tons of spices. One of my favorite, I don't know if you've ever heard of something called sumac. It's delicious. It wakes everything up.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Tell us about what sumac tastes like.
Well, when I say sour, it's not sour in a bad way, but I believe, at least I've been told, that our taste buds for salt sit next to the taste buds for sour. So when you give yourself something slightly sour, you feel like you've eaten something salty. But sumac it's like it's purple, actually. And it's hard to explain what something tastes like, but it kind of wakes up food, almost like a squeeze of lemon, but better. And it's a wonderful spice I encourage people to try if they haven't.
Sweet potatoes may be one of the oldest foods known to humanity, and may also be major contributors to the resilience of some of the healthiest and most long-lived peoples. Okinawa is the most studied blue zone on the planet, with the longest living population in the world. And the traditional Okinawan diet derived more than half of its calories from sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes are high in fiber and resistant starch, in antioxidants and a bunch of B vitamins, and also rich in minerals. Purple varieties of sweet potato also contain potent antioxidants that are called anthocyanins. To get the most nutrition from your sweet potatoes, by the way, it's best to eat them with the skin on.
The fiber in sweet potatoes support a healthy gut microbiome. They support heart health, both by regulating blood pressure and lowering LDL cholesterol. And they're also good for your eyes, and they can support fertility, and they provide nutrients essential for brain function.
One of the cheapest, healthiest, for probably in terms of nutritional bang for your buck, terms of nutrition per dollar spent, really hard to beat. The only thing that would beat sweet potatoes is like purple sweet potatoes, which have those anthocyanin berry pigments actually in a sweet potato form. And you can usually only find them during certain times of the year, but that's one of my favorite snacks of all times. You can make like sweet potato fries out of them. You can air fry with some like rosemary or all sorts of wonderful. One of my favorite snacks. I often can't find them these days, so I just get regular sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes, I think people are scared of them because people think potatoes have too many carbohydrates. But actually, sweet potatoes are good because they're high in carbohydrates and low in fat. They also have antioxidants. Those are, separate from just those macronutrients of fiber, protein, and fat. These antioxidants are helping our bodies function and preventing our chronic diseases.
You can bake sweet potatoes and serve them whole, perhaps sliced open with a condiment drizzle over the top, or you can serve them as a boat for all your favorite toppings. You can prepare them as a seasonal side dish, add them to chilies and stews, include them in casseroles and grain bowls, or even have them with breakfast scrambles and hashes. They're even good in desserts like brownies and sweet potato pies.
Yes, there really are many wonderful ways to enjoy sweet potatoes. And now let's move to our next real superfood, which are sprouts.
When it comes to growing your own food, it's hard to find anything easier or quicker or more nutritious than sprouts. If you're thinking about how to optimize your health while also enhancing your family's food security, sprouts could be just the thing you're looking for.
And Doug Evans could be just the man you would want to talk to. Doug wrote the Sprout Book, and he goes by the nickname of the Sprout Man.
I used to think to eat organic and to eat organic vegetables was elitist and expensive and only existed on the two coasts, right? And the rest of the country did not have access. And when I moved to the desert and I moved to Wonder Valley Hot Springs, I realized not only was I in the desert, I was in a food desert because we had no farmers markets, no organic markets, no health food restaurants. So for me, I had to, really ask the deep question, like, how am I going to live? And the answer came to me while staring at the stars. And the answer was sprouts. And you could ask, well, what are sprouts? And I used to think of sprouts as alfalfa sprouts or mung bean sprouts that were a garnish that you would add to a soup or to a salad or a sandwich. But in the opportunity of necessity, where I had no other choice for food, I started to look at sprouts as survival initially. And I was like, I'm going to have to derive all of my calories. So I went online and I saw that seeds were now available beyond alfalfa and mung bean, that you could get alfalfa, radish, clover, broccoli, chia, lentils, fenugreek, all sorts of lentils, peas. It was just unbelievable amounts. And within 1 month, 30 days, I was living exclusively on sprouts that I was growing in a glass jar, without soil, without sunshine, without fertilizer, without pesticides. And they were growing in days. And to answer your question, I was doing it for under $1 a serving.
Sprouts are made from legumes and seeds, which are pretty healthy to begin with. Does sprouting legumes and seeds make them even healthier?
What makes sprouting legumes and seeds so powerful? When you sprout a lentil, you double the antioxidant levels, you triple the vitamin C, and you quadruple the soluble and insoluble fiber. So you're taking something that's healthy and you are making it 20 to 100 times healthier and more nutritious with more phytonutrients. And just overall, you're taking something that's a healthy food and you're turning it into almost, the way I look at it, as vitamin supplementation. And I'm getting the vitamin supplements and the food in one.
How does Doug recommend you go about getting started with sprouting?
A seed is a living organism in a dormant state. And that seed can literally last for hundreds of years. When the seed is placed in an environment, either in fertile soil, in water, or in the digestive tract of an animal, it signals to nature to wake up, to germinate, to sprout. So sprouting can happen in many different ways. What I love about sprouting is that you can grow the sprouts without soil in a glass vessel or a plastic one if you like, or in soil. But the easiest thing is to take a jar like this, and you need some sort of filter to keep the seeds in and allow the water to go out. So the process is as simple. I love glass, as you see. So even take my seeds. So you can take, this is a 1/4 cup, add them to the jar. And then
what type of sprout is this right here?
These are broccoli seeds.
Oh, those are the best.
Yeah, these are the most researched seed. And there's probably over 2,000 peer-reviewed published papers on broccoli sprouts. And broccoli sprouts, when we talk about medicine, they've been used and researched to detoxify benzene in the lungs. They can create heat shock proteins in the brain. They can regulate insulin levels in diabetics. They're a phenomenal weight loss food because they are high fiber, low calorie, low fat. But you would take, basically a few tablespoons of seeds. You would fill just enough water, and then you'd swirl them around, and you would let them just sit. And you let them sit during the course of the day, 8 hours or overnight. And then the next morning, you would take the seeds and you'd strain out the water. So you'd strain out the extra water, and then you put it in the stand. And so,
or on the side in a dish drainer.
Yeah, dish rack, stand, cup, bowl. But you want to be at about a 30-degree angle, and the water strains. Twice a day, you rinse it. And 5 days later, you get 5 cups, 6 cups of sprouts. So literally, you're getting 10 times the volume. And this is fresh. It's just so simple. And another thing I love about sprouts is that you're eating the entire plant. The root, the shoot, the endosperm, the embryo, the testa, you're getting it all. And every single sprout contains every essential amino acid. So this whole thing about protein, well, sprouts have protein, sprouts have fiber, sprouts have phytonutrients, bioflavonoids, prebiotics. They really have it all.
And you're literally eating something that's alive. We know that fresh is best.
That's right.
This is the freshest food that you can possibly eat.
Yeah. Enzymatically rich. It is a living food. And after the week, it's actually used up the food that nature gave it to go. So after a week, you need to either transfer it into soil or give it fertilizer, grow it hydroponically, and continue to grow. But the sprouts can grow in this 1 week period just on its own internal source of energy, sequestering some carbon and oxygen from the atmosphere and the water that you add to it.
And even though they turn green, they don't need sunlight.
Yeah, they're so subtle that they're able to extract from ambient light and enough energy to initiate the photosynthesis to form the antioxidant chlorophyll.
I asked Doug, what are the most common mistakes that people make when they're growing sprouts?
The number one thing is they begin the soaking process and they never rinse again. And they're wondering why
they drown the seeds.
Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest one. The second one is that they don't rinse it on a regular basis, twice a day, morning and night. And you can get by and you can miss a rinse, but you really can't start missing 2 and 3 rinses, because then the sprouts are very, very thirsty. So the roots will actually reach out with root hairs, looking to see how they can pull in moisture and humidity from the environment. And those tiny little roots will cause the plant to either get the water, or just it's the end.
So to summarize, sprouts are something that anybody can grow right in their own kitchen. They provide a source of direct access to some of the healthiest foods on the planet for a low cost and with extraordinary value. And there are many different varieties and ways to use them in your food. From salads to casseroles, from raw to cooked to stir-fried, from dehydrated to blended, there are just so many ways to enjoy sprouts. I think that sprouting is an absolutely wonderful habit, and that sprouts really are a superfood.
I agree.
Throughout this summit, we've had the privilege of hearing from some of the healthcare practitioners who are truly on the front lines of the food revolution movement. People who are lighting the way to a world in which food is the foundation of health and who are changing the practice of medicine.
Most of them didn't learn about nutrition in medical school, but they care about their patients, and once they learned the truth about the extraordinary power of food to heal lives, they were moved to make it a cornerstone of their practice.
A growing body of doctors and other healthcare practitioners are now joining the food revolution movement. Some of them start with concern for their own health, and then the change ripples out to their patients, like Dr. Elise Atkins.
Hi, my name is Dr. Elise Atkins of Coastal Vitality MD, and this is my food revolution story. My food revolution journey started about 5 years ago when, almost by accident, I attended a 2-hour lecture put on by a physician colleague about whole food plant-based nutrition. At that time, I myself had prediabetes, and it was really perplexing to me because I could swear that I led the healthiest lifestyle I possibly could, and it was very frustrating that I couldn't reverse it and that none of my clinicians could help me with that. So anyway, I attended the lecture. My jaw dropped to the floor nearly the entire time. At the end of the 2 hours, I picked it back up and went home and sat down on my couch with my husband, where we spent the next 2 hours with me regurgitating all of that information. He listened so attentively. I didn't know what he was going to say, but as it turns out, by 10:30 that night, we decided that we were whole food plant-based eaters. And that was how it all got started for us. So for myself and for my husband as well, we both saw a myriad of changes and saw our health improve in ways that we weren't even expecting. For example, for me, my prediabetes resolved, and that was a joy to see, because even though I was only slightly over the edge of normal, I was at an age, and still am, where I felt I had decades left to live, and it was almost certain that I would develop diabetes during that time. That was scary to me. I also had asthma and chronic bronchitis that would manifest as at least 3 episodes of upper respiratory infections every year, where the cough would last 6 or 8, sometimes 10 weeks. And that wasn't devastating, but it was frustrating. In addition, I had irritable bowel syndrome and a few other things going on, as did my husband. So lo and behold, over time, as we adopted this new way of eating, which felt to us like it was full of joy and abundance and not in any way restriction, all of those symptoms melted away. The prediabetes, as I explained, Then I had no respiratory infections for a period of years. And even the irritable bowel syndrome, I'd say my symptoms got about 90% better. So as these things started to happen with me, and as my learning deepened, I started to share it all with my patients. I couldn't help it. And all of a sudden, our dinner time conversation changed from, what was bothering me from that day to, hey, honey, again, I helped another patient cure their diabetes. Somebody else reversed their blood pressure. I removed this or that number of medications today. And that felt astounding to me because I was taught in medical school and in all of my follow-up continuing medical education training after that simply wasn't possible. We're talking about chronic diseases. They're not reversible almost by definition. And then every day started feeling like a miracle to me.
A lot of people think that they're eating a little better than most, and
Yes.
they're not as unhealthy as most.
Yes.
So what's the problem? What would you say to such people?
That's such a good point. I would say, first of all, I was one of those people. I felt that my diet was really terrific because I did include a vegetable with dinner, and I did eat organic, free-range chicken, grass-fed beef, and not that much of it, etc. And I exercised. I thought I was doing everything. Now I understand that it's truly a diet based in whole plant foods, eaten as close to the way that they're grown as possible. That's truly the most healthy, and that it makes an enormous difference. It's not just a little side chat like throw in a vegetable here and there, but rather if I can just fill my body every day with all the whole grains, legumes, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds that I can, and pretty much nothing else, then I get the gift of the most health and honestly the most joy, the most energy, better sleep, everything that I want out of life.
As we've seen in this summit, when you move away from the modern industrialized diet and when you choose to base your diet around whole plant foods, something extraordinary can happen. You can prevent disease for sure. And something else can happen too. You may find that you have more energy, that you feel better and happier and more alive.
The real goal of health, I think, isn't just to live longer. It's to live better. It isn't just to add years to your life, but also to add life to your years. And when you give your body the right fuel, you become better able to do what you were born to do, to make the most of this one precious life, to give your gifts, and to live with purpose and passion.
Every bite you take is in a sense a vote. You're voting for the health you want, and you're voting for the world that you want. So let's make our votes count.
There's no way any diet or lifestyle will be a guarantee of eternal health. In fact, every single one of us is going to die sooner or later. But along the way, let's live the best way we can. And let's eat the best way we can so that we truly nurture our lives and our loves.
We wish you abundant health and peace and all good things.
And we thank you for joining us in this, our final and bonus episode of the 2024 Food Revolution Summit.
Let's do this.